listening to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports, game recaps, player spotlights, and the latest from the heart of Blue Raider Nation. Now, here's your host, Jay Golden.
Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast. In today's Friday special edition of Behind Enemy Lines, we're going to be taking a preview into the Austin Peay Governors ahead of our season opener tomorrow at Floyd Stadium at 6 p.m. Central. Joining us will be the voice of the Governors Sports Network, Brian Rives. He's going to give us the lowdown on the Governors this upcoming season, a little insight into what they have in store for us. Before we do that, I need to take a second to thank our title sponsor, Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Before we get into the episode, I need to thank our sponsor. Gold's Gym has been the mecca of fitness since 1965, and to celebrate their 60-year anniversary right now, you can get a month-to-month membership for just $19.65 bi-weekly. That's no commitment, full access to all 16 Gold's Gym Tennessee locations, and top-tier equipment to help you level up your fitness no matter your sport. But here's the deal. This offer is only available online, and it ends when the summer does, so don't wait. Go to goldsgym.com and lock it in today. Gold's Gym Tennessee. Train like a legend, no strings attached. Now, let's get back to the episode. Joining us now here on the Blue Raider Podcast. First time, it's been a pleasure to get to know him before recording, but it is the voice of the Governors Sports Network, Brian Rives. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Jake, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it. Glad to talk college football anytime.
It's been a long off season, like it seems to be every single year. Both of these programs are really in a unique state right now. Austin Peay in particular, you're going into your second year. MTSU's going into our second year with our head coach. What's kind of the feeling there in Clarksville about football? I know that the Walden era's passed, but where is that excitement now? Well,
the excitement is there, and it's almost the excitement of the unknown. You know, there's only 38 players back on this roster from a season ago, from a team that went 4-8, that had 4 or 5 plays a game where we could have easily been 8-4. I know everybody says that. Everybody wants to be the eternal optimist, but that was truth, and that's what we saw. A lack of depth as the season went on really hurt this team, and some guys had to play out of position and play more snaps than they needed to, but the anticipation around the Austin Peay family and around the Clarksville area is excited because from what you hear, from what you know about the players that were brought in, whether it was one of the 47 transfers that came in on this roster, whether it's one of the 22 new freshmen that are just brand new to this program, you hear how good, you hear how much they mean, and you hear Coach Ferris and his staff talk. So the anticipation is there, but the unknown makes you a little guarded. But I think, you know, I made the joke with you before we started recording. Chip and I are both going to be using our rosters and depth cards as much as we've ever used them come Saturday night, tomorrow night, getting ready for this game because of how much this roster has turned over for Austin Peay and for Middle Tennessee.
Tell me about the dynamic there, because when you talk about what MTSU went through in their transition, you had a long tenured head coach where you're kind of a 50-50 split in-house of should we part ways, shouldn't we part ways? Well, what happened, you got Mason. Where in Austin Peay situation, and I'm sure as you are experiencing and as you're already alluding to a little bit, some of your best talent's going to leave, much like a head coach, and Coach Walden did when he left for El Paso. What was kind of that first year expectation for Coach Ferris? Was it we expect to kind of get to that competing for conference championship, or we understand the circumstances?
So I'm going to take you back a decade, quite honestly, to Will Healy coming in and going and closing out the nation's longest losing streak at that time. And then Coach Healy giving us 4 years to building up and getting to compete for to where we didn't make a playoff run and didn't get a bid, and we were disappointed. And then Coach Healy moves on. We make a OVC championship run in 2019. We make a ASUN championship run, which unfortunately no longer has football. And now we're in the UAC, and we've seen that championship run. You mentioned Scotty Walden. First year underperformed but built. So I think everyone understands where we are as Austin Peay and what Coach Ferris had. A 4-8 season where he came in as a first-time head coach. And I think Coach Ferris will be honest with you, as he's very honest and candid and open with us as broadcasters and folks around this program. There were mistakes made. In any first-year head coach, you can always be a coordinator. You can always be a position coach. But when you're in that number one chair, when you're on the headset that make the ultimate call, there were some mistakes made. And again, that roster wasn't where it needed to be. The depth wasn't there. He was the man who was in charge of the offense, calling the plays on game day, not just being the head coach. So I think he's given a little bit to offense coordinator Quinn Billerman this season as well, as far as what's going to go on in a game for play calls, so he can monitor more the head coaching responsibility. So a little bit of subtle changes, but I think the excitement is there. You've seen the work. He's been out in the community. He's been out on the recruiting trail. For us, we get, we'll roll out 22 starters. 9 of those starters tomorrow are Tennessee products. So he focuses on the volunteer state and wanting to keep those kids at home that maybe don't have the chance in Murfreesboro or in Knoxville or in Memphis or down on West End. They can come to Clarksville and produce and be part of a Tennessee product. So we understand what his vision is, and we're clearly seeing what that vision is. So I would say it's going to be just like a Walden, just like a Healy. It's 4 to 5 years, and we understand that in 4 to 5 years, if that success comes like it did for those previous head coaches, he may be going to another program. We don't want that, but we also understand that's the nature of the game that we play now. But I think the anticipation is there to make that next step because the roster is better, the depth is better. I think the talent is better. No knock on those guys that have previously worn the red and white, but he's getting his program, his players to fit his philosophy, his offense, his defense, and see where we can go in 2025.
Well, I'm glad you bring up some of those players. Let's get into it. Tell me who are these names that we need to be looking forward to on Saturday that might, stand out. And I know there's no shortage, as you already touched on, of Tennessee talent that a lot of the mid-state people should already know from high school.
So we'll bring back a quarterback that played the majority of the season last year, Austin Smith, but he's competed all fall camp with Chris Parsons, a young man from Brentwood, Ravenwood High School product, went to Mississippi State for 2 years, wanted to play for the Pirate. Unfortunately, we all know how that story ends, and just didn't fit into what Coach Levy's doing down there with the Bulldogs, so he decided to get in the portal, and lucky enough, we brought him back to Clarksville. So Chris Parsons is a guy that we'll rely on. I'll be honest, I fully expect it to be Chris Parsons to take the snaps under center. We may see both. That's what you get in week one. You don't know what you'll get until it's put on the field. We returned 2 great running backs in Caden Williams and Corey Richardson, 2 young sophomores that have been with this program that we had to, quite honestly and frankly, re-recruit to stay with this program. So that tells you what their level of talent is. So those young men are quality, and that's a big piece for us. We've got to be able to run the football. And to run the football, we're in the same spot as MTSU was. We had to rebuild an offensive line. Chandler Curtin will start at center for us, an all-United Athletic Conference performer for the last 2 years, academic All-American. I honestly think we'll play somewhere on Sundays and at the next level. But he's the only guy I could tell you when we left spring practice 3 months ago who would be on this line. Everyone else comes in with new, fresh faces from different places. And so putting that offensive line group together, the ability to run the football with consistency, wide receivers, our leading returning wide receiver was 7th last year in receptions, and it's a tight end. So we've got to find production on the outside. Knowing what you guys have defensively for the Blue Raiders, we've got to find some punch in the passing game from Chris. And to keep, what's better for a first-year quarterback or for a new quarterback, he's got to have a run game. And for us, that's a big piece of what we got to find. And it'll be the names of Corey Richardson and Caden Williams getting that started for us.
Tell me now, you talked about some of those good pieces that they have there on the offensive side. Would you say that the defense is kind of the most vulnerable part of the Governor's football team?
I think that's a fair statement. I've got 2 names, 2 guys returned from last year. Ellis Jr., another local product, will start at cornerback. He's an all-United Athletic Conference performer. And then we put a man out on the defensive end that you look at to get ready. Davion Hood, an all-UAC preseason performer. Those are the only 2 returners on defense. Like I said, it's going to be depth chart and roster Saturday, making sure I call the right names and numbers for our guys on the defensive front. Brand new defensive coordinator for us as well, and Greg Jones. 7 of the 9 coaches from last year are back. The 2 that didn't come back, the main DC, Mr. Greg Jones, is in, and then our special teams coordinator, and Lucas Reed comes in to take care of that for Austin Peay. So on the defensive side, again, I think we're solid at linebacker, but to get good linebacker play, you've got to have great front 4 play. We'll run a 4-2-5 base for Coach Jones. In this day and age of college football, you've got to keep defensive backs on the field. You've got to have athletes on the field to counteract what you guys will do and what Variado will do at quarterback. So we'll have a 4-2-5 base. We'll get linebackers that play sideline to sideline, probably undersized for what you guys are used to, what we're used to as well. But it's the athleticism that'll carry us through, and that's what we'll push for the defense. But it's unknown. It is unknown just because I've seen it in practice. I've heard about it when we've talked to coaching staffs, when I've been able to talk to other players getting ready for this. They're there. They're balled in. They understand what they're expected to do and what the philosophy is going to be on defense. But it's just the unknown of putting the product on the field and what that means for Austin Peay.
Well, before we get into the keys to the game for the Governors, we need to thank our sponsor for that segment. When life happens, you want someone in your corner who actually knows your name. And that's where Trevor Haggard State Farm comes in. Whether it's protecting your car, your home, or your family's future, Trevor and his team are right here in Murfreesboro ready to help. So don't settle for some 1-800 number. Call a neighbor who cares. Call Trevor Haggard State Farm today and let them help you protect what matters most. Trevor Haggard, State Farm, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And, of course, you can call Trevor at 615-203-5522. Brian, these keys to the game, just to kind of build off of what you're talking about, it's funny. I've done some CUSA previews with other teams, and everyone, it feels like this is across the board in all of Division I football. A lot of teams feel good about where their offense is, but it's that defense that leaves a lot of teams worried. And as you touched on there, it seems like Austin Peay is in that same ballpark.
Yeah, when you talk keys for us, the first thing is going to be defensive pressure. We know, first of all, we're not going to see too many fifth-year senior quarterbacks, but Variados was one of those kids that you guys are blessed to have a guy that's steady as she goes. You know, I think he was just shy of 260 yards a game last year. I know he was over 3,000 yards. So we've got to be able to make him uncomfortable. I'm not sure we can do it. Again, with as many games as he started, with as many snaps and reps as he's had, we may have to throw some things at him or try to throw some things at him that he hadn't seen before. Maybe we mush rush and take the pressure off and just try to cover more and just show him different looks. But that's the biggest thing for us. Again, we're going to play with a front 4 that's unknown, you know, other than Hood on the outside. I know Kendall Ball's a guy who got some snaps last year. Kinston Rives, a young man at defensive tackle that got some snaps late last year. But this will be if their number's called first or they get more snaps and reps. We haven't seen what they look like in a full game yet. So that's a big piece for us is getting that pressure. I know Middlebrook for you guys going to take on a lot of the running game. But again, I think for us, it's just that pressure up front, meeting somebody in the backfield, whether Middlebrook's carrying the football or forcing Variado to get off the spot and deliver maybe off posture or off kilter. That's a big piece for us early defensively.
As you go through these keys, I can't help but just see similarities in a game where on paper you're overmatched because MTSU travels to Wisconsin next week. And I feel like these same keys could apply because you have to have that defensive pressure you're talking about, but also you just can't make mistakes. And in a game like this for Austin Peay, much like for MTSU and Wisconsin, not to look past this Saturday, of course, but there's a level of that has to happen in a game like this because you have to, well, first there has to be a belief, as I'm sure you know, but you have to play smart. You can't play yourself out of these games.
Oh, the play smart for us is just no self-inflicted wounds. And I got the chance to listen to Coach Mason's press conference on Monday, and he talked about that as well, going back to the opener a season ago against Tennessee Tech and how they made those mistakes that let Tech have some life. Maybe they'll do that for us tomorrow. That'll be fine. But for us, you know, we've got to be able to stay on the field on third downs. We can't hurt ourselves. Third down penalties for us last year, unfortunately, became a all too common occurrence. So, you know, 73rd out of the 134 division FCS teams last year as far as third down conversion rate for the Governors. That's got to improve. We can't commit the silly holding penalty. We just got to play smarter. Ball possession. You know, I can give you all the coach speak parts right here, and they would all apply, as you said, when you go to Wisconsin next week or when we head between the hedges to take on Georgia next week. All that's going to apply. But for us, again, with so many new pieces, to have a positive play early, to get a drive maybe early that gets hopefully 7, but at least 3, or gets consecutive first downs where that confidence builds like, hey, this unit didn't just do it in practice. We didn't just do it when we scrimmaged each other, hitting each other in the face. We can do it against an opponent. And to get that confidence going, to me, that's where the smartness comes in, and just to give the ability and the belief that, hey, this is where we belong on a Saturday night.
There's a lot of ways you can go with the next question, and as part of our Trevor Haggard sponsored portion of the episode, we go into the X factor. Who is the most important player for Austin Peay, much like Trevor Haggard is for you and your insurance needs? But who is that X factor for the Governors on Saturday?
It's Chris Parsons. I don't think there's any doubt it's the starting quarterback for the Governors. And again, as we said, Ravenwood High School product gets to come back. You know there's going to be a ton of family and friends in the stands, a short drive to get to Murfreesboro. Clarksville's going to bring a lot of red and try to break up that white out tomorrow night as well. But for us, it's Chris Parsons. The ability to make any team, whether it be middle, whether it be when we get into UAC with Tarleton State or Utah Tech or whoever we're playing, to defend all 11 makes a huge difference. You've been around this game long enough that, normally you're defending 10 because the quarterback, once they hand it off, is out of the play, or once they, do what they do for the play that you don't have to account for. Parsons gives us that attitude and that running quarterback ability that has made college football and college offenses what we see pretty much every Saturday. We couldn't do that last year. Austin Smith came in after an injury to Garcia against Louisville in our opener. And at that point, we were down to a shorter quarterback room. So Coach Ferris couldn't really employ that offense with that mobile running quarterback because of the depth we talked about not being behind it. Because you were one injury away from going to a redshirt freshman who, a year ago was worried about going to a senior prom more than playing college football. So now with Parsons, now you've got Austin Smith behind him. You've got Trey Blakemore, a young freshman who came in early for us. You got a Davin Garinger at quarterback. This quarterback room is as solid at Austin Peay as it's been in several years. But Parsons to us, he is a thrower first. We all know that. But his legs can get him out of a lot of trouble that other quarterbacks can't get out of. And to me, Parsons becomes that X factor for us.
I had the pleasure of watching Parsons from the sideline his first year there at Ravenwood, and he actually went up against NBA's Marcel Reed, which those in the college football space, starting quarterback at Texas, or I guess projected starting quarterback at Texas A&M this year, and what a battle that was. And again, when I saw that Chris was going to Austin Peay, knowing that was our first game this year, definitely something I had highlighted. So Blue Raider fans alike, you're going to see an SEC caliber quarterback, in my opinion, play for Austin Peay. And I fully anticipate him to give problems because all the reasons you listed. He's as dual threat as they come. But I like the thing about his style, as you said it, is he's a pass first. He's going to make the play that's designed. And then if he has to improvise, he'll make the run, which sounds eerily similar to a Blue Raider quarterback that we'll see on Saturday as well. So I think Chris is going to be a special talent, and that's exciting. But as we close this up here, Brian, talk about this game. MTSU fans went into last year's season opener against Tennessee Tech, anticipating a relatively bad Tennessee Tech team. They opened the game up with a 21-0 lead, and then we had a thunderstorm, a lightning storm, and it all got swept away. And next thing we know, Tennessee Tech's winning with under 5 minutes left to go, and we got into a battle. And that Tennessee Tech team made a run that year, to as much respect to them, to the Golden Eagles last year.
Playoff team, yes.
Absolutely. And so we think about this Austin Peay team who didn't rank high in the UAC preseason poll, but I guess, expectations for this game, should we expect this to be more of a high scoring game because both teams kind of have question marks on that defensive side? Or are you expecting this to be kind of a bloodbath? What do you see happening tomorrow?
To be honest with you, I see a rock fight. I think both teams are unknown. I know what you have at quarterback and running back, but you don't know what you have up front. We know what we have at quarterback and running back. We have no idea what we know up front. I think Coach Mason, a defensive-minded coach, for lack of better terms, probably pissed off about the way his defense played last year. So he wants to put his stamp on that. We have a brand-new defensive coordinator who wants to go against a fifth-year quarterback and wants to put his stamp. I expect this to be on the lower scoring end. I really do. I'm going to pull for my red and white, and I'm going to tell the Governors. But I can tell you this, it's been since 1986 since the Governors beat Middle Tennessee. It's been since 2010 since this game's even been played. It's a shame as these two old Ohio Valley Conference rivals don't get together more as close in proximity as Clarksville and Murfreesboro are. Last time we won in Murfreesboro, 1984. So I'm always a numbers guy and look at history, so it gives you a little bit. But Saturday, to me, I think both teams I'll be honest with you, if we play the first quarter and neither team score, it won't surprise me. But I think both teams are going to try to feel some things out and see what works because, and Coach Mason was asked this week in his press conference, how do you scout a team where you don't even know, those players weren't there last year to give you film to look at? It's a very fair question. And I think it's going to be a lot of read and adjust and then implement as you move along. I also think this team and both these teams are subject to the big play. We've got an all UAC cornerback. We've got a guy who just transferred that was an all Ivy League performer that's going to start at the opposite corner. But then when you look at our safeties and our boundary corners, the unknown. So again, I think both these teams may be susceptible to a big play or two in this contest. And I think that might be the difference. And if it comes down to the kicking game, I love our chances. I'll take my all conference performer and I'll roll out Carson Smith, one of the best kickers at the FCS level. I'm not just talking about that because he's on my team, but he is. He's one of the best, and if it comes down to the kicking game, I'll take Carson's leg any day of the week. But I don't see this being a big score game. We may get out of here in Johnny Red Floyd on Saturday night, and I may have egg on my face from being completely wrong. But that's just not the way I see this one rolling out starting tomorrow night.
Well, I'll just be happy if we can make it out without a rain delay, much like we experienced in multiple home games last year. But, Brian, I agree. I think personally, you're going to get either into that spectrum. I think you're going to either get a rock fight or both defenses are maybe as susceptible as we thought they were, and we get some high-scoring affairs because of the talent that is in the backfield. But I look forward to the game this Saturday for all the reasons listed. But, of course, football is finally back for both of these programs. Brian, before I let you go, tell me where can we listen to you on Saturday?
So we're part of the Governor Sports Network, which is ESPN Clarksville out of course, Clarksville, Tennessee. You can stream us live and for free at clarksvillenow.com. That's our sister website. The little sports tab, click on there. You can follow us on X at ESPN Clarksville. You can follow me on X at Brian Rives. You'll get a lot of Austin Peay reports. You'll get a lot of proud dad from a high school senior in her Clarksville High School marching band and all of her performances and escapades. And then my son is a sophomore at Austin Peay, be working on the sideline with the camera in his hand. He's a photographer for the Austin Peay Athletic Department. So it's a family affair when we hit it Saturday. But, Jake, I appreciate you inviting me. I wish you the best. I've had a few times in Murfreesboro across the street at the old Borough and Gentleman Jack. So hopefully the Governors will celebrate across the street after this one from Johnny Red Floyd. But it's just football time. That's the best thing you can say about Saturday. We finally quit talking about practice and depth charts and what was and what is. Now we get to prove it on the field.
I'm excited for it. Brian, real quick, too. Most that listen to this show know that I'm more of a basketball guy first ahead of a football. I guess I got to know up north, how are things looking for Governors basketball?
Corey Gibson will be in his third season. I'm lucky enough to do football and men's basketball. Coach Gipp will have a roster that'll return what I believe will be 4 starters from a season ago. An incredible freshman class coming in. So we're going to be young. It's not a balance like we had last year. We had some good experience. You're going to have a starting group that has experience. Everything off the bench is going to be young and unproven. But we're going to compete. The UAC on the basketball side is getting better and better. We actually are still part of the ASUN in basketball. We're going to make them move to the UAC full-time next year. So we get a Lipscomb, we get a Stetson, we get a North Alabama who made a trip to the NCAAs last year. So, when we get to basketball, we need to get this one back in the glass house going again as well and make a home and home early or, something where the fans could really enjoy this, because when the blue and white and the red and white get together, again, those old heads, which I'm one of them, as you can tell with the lack of hair, know how big this rivalry and what that means between Middle and Austin Peay. And I'd love to see this become an annual competition, whether it's the gridiron, the basketball court, the baseball diamond, which we luckily still do, the softball, the soccer pitch, whatever it is. Middle and Austin Peay need to see each other year in and year out.
Yeah, I'm glad you led to that because that's where I was getting. As Austin Peay, I know basketball is trending upwards, and MTSU has seemed to have been that way the last couple of years. And this is a great rivalry that dates back a lot of years. So excited to see it come to fruition once again for the second time since MTSU has left the OVC. But Brian, thanks again for joining us.
Jake, I appreciate it anytime, and let's go Peay.
Thanks again to Brian Rives of the Governor Sports Network, and thanks to you, the listener, for tuning into today's episode. Of course, if it's your first time listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Follow us on social media at TikTok, Instagram, Twitter/X, Facebook, to give us that follow so you don't miss those next uploads. Until next time, go Blue.